Hey Cowboys Nation, let's go for another round of news from America's team. Watch until the end so you don't miss any news and sign up to stay tuned for everything that comes out about the Cowboys.
Mike Zimmer versus Dan Quinn? New Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator will shock the system. Raves Darren Woodson. Is it a shock that the Dallas Cowboys have hired Mike Zimmer to be the new defensive coordinator? Not at all. We reported a week ago that he'd have the inside track to this job, and we've gone into detail as to why. But there is another sort of shock, ready to roll its way into the star, promises Dallas legend Darren Woodson, who promises that it's exactly the shock this team needs. He's going to coach hard, said Woodson, who played under Zimmer in the Cowboys Super Bowl era of the 1990s. He is tough, hard-nosed. He is not going to be your best friend, he's just not. Some players will not want to play for him, because the expectations will be harder than in the last few years. Zimmer, Woodson said, is the shock this team needs. Is that a criticism of the work of predecessor Dan Quinn, now the head coach in Washington? Not exactly. Does it mean the Cowboys run a country club atmosphere at the Star under head coach Mike McCarthy? Nah. What it means is that change, especially if the change comes with competence, is good. I can't tell you how many times he and I talked about football this past season, like, every week, Woodson said. Every week, he's calling about so-and-so. He's so engaged in the game. He knows the game better than anyone. And there is another factor at work here regarding the shock. Remember when team owner Jerry Jones, as part of his all-in pledge, also mentioned how the Cowboys need disruption. While the Jones family relationship with Zimmer is obviously one of trust and comfortability, Zimmer's management style with his players is anything but comfortable. Dan Quinn's style? He was indeed a best friend to his players. They're getting a great coach, a great man, somebody that's gonna lead them the right way, said Pro Bowl cornerback Darren Bland of Quinn to Washington. I love him. He doesn't treat you like he's your coach. He tried to treat you like he's a brother, a player, another guy you can talk to. That worked then, as a high level, for Quinn's Cowboys. But now, here comes a shock at the Star with Zim's Cowboys. Cowboys could sign 16.5 sack Vikings star after hiring Mike Zimmer. The Dallas Cowboys have named Mike Zimmer as their new defensive coordinator, and his connections could set up moves in free agency. Of all the prospective names, there may not be an option more enticing than Minnesota Vikings defensive end Danielle Hunter. Hunter has been one of the top pass rushers in the NFL since 2016 after first joining Minnesota the previous year. Zimmer was the head coach when Hunter was drafted and coached Hunter for 6 seasons before being fired in 2021. Hunter went from being a third-round pick with upside to making his first Pro Bowl in 2018 under Zimmer. Further, he got paid a hefty second contract while Zimmer was leading the coaching staff as well. A point of recent connection was that Zimmer put Hunter as a reserve on his current-day All-NFL team. In a spot for the 33rd team, Zimmer listed the best defensive players at each position. Hunter was named to one of 5 reserve spots, with Cowboys star Micah Parsons being listed as the number 1 edge rusher. Parsons' presence may make it seem like Dallas doesn't need pass rushing help. But their inability to pressure Green Bay Packers QB Jordan Love in the NFC wildcard loss tells the story. And with pass rushers like Dante Fowler Jr. and Durance Armstrong hitting free agency, the Cowboys can add another sack machine to the roster. Hunter hits elite status with Vikings. With 8 seasons under his belt, Hunter is 29 years old but showing no signs of slowing down. In fact, 2023 was his best season in Minnesota and he's made 4 Pro Bowl appearances. Starting with 12.5 sacks in 2016, Hunter has crossed the 10-sack mark in 5 different seasons. But 2023 was a significant step up. He racked up 16.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles and an NFL-leading 23 tackles for loss according to PFR. The only red flag with Hunter is his injury history. He has not dealt with many injuries, but 2 severe issues in 2020 and 2021. A neck injury completely sidelined him in 2020, while a torn pectoral muscle limited him to 7 games in 2021. But considering he bounced back with 10.5 sacks in 2022 and then his monstrous campaign last fall, There are no apparent long-term issues. Can the Cowboys afford Hunter? There's been no shortage of salary cap talk around Dallas recently. The team is projected to be $14.3 million over the cap as things stand. Making room for Hunter, who Spotrac projects to get a $20 million a year contract, doesn't seem possible. With restructures and releases, Dallas could easily open up that kind of space. Hunter may also be willing to play ball on a back-loaded contract that pays him, say, $10 minus $15 million in 2023. Dallas will have to pay the bill in the years following, but they could at least fit him in while they're going all in. Hunter is the type of player that any team in the NFL would love to have, even if they boast a top-tier pass rusher. The former LSU Tiger can rush from either end of the defensive line, meaning he, Parsons, and DeMarcus Lawrence can all get plenty of opportunities. With Lawrence turning 32 in April, this is a great opportunity to reload without any form of stopgap. Cowboys star breaks silence on playoff loss with shocking admission. The Dallas Cowboys entered the NFL playoffs as the NFC East champions and viewed by many as a legitimate Super Bowl threat, but instead exited with a blowout loss to the Green Bay Packers in the wildcard round. Turns out, according to defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, the push to simply qualify for the postseason as the number 2 seed took too much out of the Cowboys. "We was just burned out, man," Lawrence said, during a recent appearance on ESPN's First Take. Long season, team dominantly healthy through the season. The legs get tired. Lawrence's shocking admission is a bit of an indictment on how the Cowboys prepare throughout the season. Dallas won 7 of its final 9 games of the regular season, but dropped consecutive road contests against the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills that put the number 1 seed and first-round bye out of reach. The team was predominantly healthy throughout the season, Lawrence said. The legs get tired. This past season, though, Lawrence only played 601 defensive snaps but generated 48 total pressures along with his 4 sacks. The Cowboys' early exit, and Lawrence's comments, could serve as an impetus for head coach Mike McCarthy to adjust how his team approaches the second half of a season. DeMarcus Lawrence credits Packers. The Cowboys didn't just lose to the Packers, extending the franchise's NFC Championship game drought to 29 seasons. Dallas was outclassed in every facet. Green Bay departed AT&T Stadium with a 48-32 victory, that only wound up being that close on the scoreboard after the Packers removed some of their starters for a stretch in the second half. "You have to give hats off to Green Bay," Lawrence said on First Take. "They had a great game plan. Rolling out towards Micah, Parsons, and running away from me, I felt like that's what they needed to get that game started. They jumped on us fast that's what happens." By game's end, the Cowboys actually outgained the Packers 510 yards to 415, but Lawrence admits that even Dallas halftime adjustments weren't quite enough to stem the tide. "I feel like we went in the locker room," Lawrence said, "and we came out with our adjustments but still didn't go the way we wanted it to go." Cowboys legend pumped up about Mike Zimmer hire. The Cowboys defense is going to have a new look in 2024, with the arrival of new defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer. News of Zimmer's hire has Cowboys Hall of Fame wide receiver Michael Irvin fired up. Mike Zimmer will bring a more calm approach, Irvin told TMZ Sports, and he'll make every team walk the ball down the field. Irvin forged a Hall of Fame career as a big play threat at wide receiver, but believes that this era of Cowboys teams has lacked an ability to play complementary football. And that Zimmer's hire is about to change that. "If you've got an explosive offense," Irvin said, "and the other team has to walk the ball down the field, it gives you a better chance at winning.